Cowboys after being drafted in 2024 coming out of Western Michigan. Our hearts go out to all of those who loved Marshawn, but especially to his family. His mom, Wendy, passed away in 2024 in the month of February, just a couple months before he was drafted, and he credited her always for driving his dream to reach the NFL. He, of course, reached that dream. Today, we're thinking about his dad, Sean, his 3 siblings as well, his family that loved him so incredibly much. And when you think about this, you just can't help but have your heart break with what's been going on and what we've seen certainly out of this situation and so much more. We'll spend some time on this in just a little bit, but wanted to bring you the statement from the organization today. The Cowboys organization said this: "It is with extreme sadness that the Dallas Cowboys share that Marshawn Kneeland tragically passed away this morning. Marshawn was a beloved teammate and member of our organization. Our thoughts and prayers regarding Marshawn are with his girlfriend Catalina and his family." Adam Schefter is with us now. Adam, what more can you add about this tragic news?
Laura, there are no words to describe the tragic nature of this particular story. The Dallas Cowboys organization was alerted to this story in the middle of the night last night. They were tracking the details all night long. And as you could imagine, it was a terribly long night for everybody involved, unspeakably sad. Police were in a car chase, according to the Frisco police, with Marshawn Kneeland. They located his vehicle after it was crashed and abandoned. He fled the scene, and they later found him shortly after 1:31 in the morning. And obviously, the word spread within the organization, as it was described to me very early this morning when I got a call about this. This was something that everybody was up all night, just completely horrified by. You cannot imagine anything like this ever happening to anybody. And when it happens to a football organization where these men sometimes seem so big and strong and invincible, it's even harder to process. And now the Dallas Cowboys, who are on their bye week, have to come back to unspeakable sadness. They've lost one of their own, something that will stay with them forever, something that is unimaginable. And the Dallas Cowboys now will be mourning the loss of a great young man who's gone way too soon.
You know, a big part of this, Adam, is that they were all just with him on Monday night. And listen, football certainly is secondary in all of this. But when it comes to honoring who he was, it is a piece of his story. On Monday night, you see here, Kneeland was the one who hustled to secure a blocked punt in the end zone for a touchdown in the game against the Cardinals. There he is celebrating with his teammates, of course. And that's one of the things they'll remember. As we welcome in Todd Archer, our Cowboys reporter. And Todd, how is the team working to support the players, the staff, as they mourn the loss of Kneeland?
Yeah, Laura, the team has posted a photo of Marshawn Kneeland on the big video board outside the Ford Center at the Star, mourning his passing. And they've made grief counselors available to the players, to the coaches, to everybody on the staff. But like you said, they're on their bye week, so not everybody's around. So they've had remote meetings with people, reaching out to everybody to see if there's anything that they can do for the players, for the staff, for the coaches, and as well as the Marshawn Kneeland family. I just got off the phone with former Cowboys coach Jason Garrett. He was the head coach in 2012 when tragically linebacker Jerry Brown was killed in a car accident the day before they played the Cincinnati, or 2 days before they played the Cincinnati Bengals. And he said, the biggest thing right now is you just have to be present for everybody. And that can be taxing as a head coach, as an assistant coach, but that's your job in these most difficult of times. And earlier today, I reached out to Greg Ellis. He was Kneeland's position coach last year, former Cowboys first-round pick. And he said he was the epitome of everything you want in a football player. He worked hard, he studied, he did extra. And you hear a lot of things he said about this new generation, but that wasn't Marshawn. He was still a yes sir, no sir kind of guy. And that's where the Cowboys, they'll miss the guy more than they'll miss the player, because he did have an impact on that locker room in his standing in just his second year in the team.
Yeah, just so incredibly sad. Thanks for the perspective there, Todd. And this statement came in from Kneeland's agent, who was also a very close friend. Jonathan Persley said this: "I am shattered to confirm that my client and dearest friend, Marshawn Kneeland, passed away last night. I watched him fight his way from a hopeful kid at Western Michigan with a dream to being respected as a professional for the Dallas Cowboys. Marshawn poured his heart into every snap, every practice, and every moment on the field. To lose someone with his talent, spirit, and goodness is a pain I can hardly put into words. Let's expand our conversation here as we welcome these guys in. Dan Orlovsky, Peter Schrager, Jason McCourty. Guys, let's start with you, Dan. What was your reaction when you heard this news this morning?
I think the initial reaction was like, why do I hear about this happening more and more nowadays than ever before? You know, I think as a professional athlete or a person who makes professional athletics, like, you don't make it there, I feel, unless you start to believe that you're almost like superhuman, like you're Superman, that you're invincible, because it takes like so much unrealistic effort and hard work and sacrifice to get there, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's 10, 15 years of it, and you kind of lose sight of your humanness in a way. You know, like as an athlete that reaches the top of the mountain, you're like, well, there's nothing that you can put in front of me that I can't overcome. And so like you lose the reality of you being like a person because you think you're almost a machine. Like, oh, this is an obstacle, I'll overcome it. Oh, this is and you, I think at times, like, you can't conceptualize like being vulnerable or saying that you're weak or saying that you're in a bad place because you're a football player, you're a warrior. You're not supposed to say that. You know, like, you can't go into your teammates really and be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. At least I don't ever felt like I could have done that. You'd be like, shut up, dude, go work hard or something, you know? Like, because over time you just kind of get to that. And so I think, like, sometimes athletes, they fall, I don't want to say fall victim to, but kid themselves to being invincible in a way that nothing can break them and lose sight of the things that, like, actually can at times.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. When I saw the news this morning, I have a few friends that are on the staff down there, and my initial thought was with them. I could only imagine, I'm waking up and I'm seeing the news. I can only imagine, I know 2 coaches on that staff personally. For those guys, you wake up and you were in meetings the day before and you saw Marshawn Kneeland sitting there. You remembered him scoring a touchdown in your last game on a Monday night. And now you wake up and you see the news that he's not there. And as you start to think about where they are as a team and where they are right now in this moment, Todd just talked about the fact that they're on their bye week. So you're away from it. For a lot of guys, you're home with family and friends that you haven't seen throughout the first half of this season. They're celebrating you being home and being around a little bit more, being present. You take a little bit of extra time to hug your kids or to hug mom or dad, to just be present and be there. But then I fast forward for those guys when they come back off that bye week. When you walk back into that locker room and you see Marshawn's locker, for whoever sat next to him in the team meeting room, when you go to take your seat and you see that the seat next to you is now empty, to me, like, that's when it gets real and that's when it gets hard, because you can't conceptualize a young man at the age of 24 living not only his dream, but the dream that probably so many people that he passed by on his journey to get to where he was. Think about it from all the way in Pop Warner to playing in high school to college, the amount of teammates he had that probably were looking at him Monday night like, damn, Marshawn made it. Yeah. Like, did you see that?
Yeah.
Did you see that play?
And he had that big moment, you know, it seemed that was the biggest play of his career in the pros. He worked so hard for that.
You know?
Yeah.
So there's so many people along the journey that, for me, I didn't know him personally, but you think about the loved ones and friends and family in his life that they're going to be missing a large piece of them with his loss.
Well said. I look at that as, this is Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys. This young man had a touchdown in front of millions and millions of people and was able to celebrate with his teammates, and that was 72 hours ago. This is heartbreaking, and this is heartbreaking because it's not only a 24-year-old football player, it's a 24-year-old person. And I didn't play football. I can never imagine, you know, what it takes to get there, and the bravado and the ability to overcome and block out the noise and what that. I'm also not a 24-year-old right now. I look at Instagram and I look at social media as a 40-year-old, and I feel less than. And I feel, wait, that person has that, and this other person has that, and they're having. I don't know what it's like to be a 20-year-old in this generation, and I can only imagine the day-to-day of trying to live a life in the present and then going on social media and hearing, hey, this guy doesn't fulfill expectations as a draft pick, or this guy is, or the Cowboys are 3-5-1. We don't know what was going on in his world. So I just openly say, like, I didn't grow up in that social media age. I think it's an entirely different layer for all of these young players that they deal with on a daily basis. And my heart goes out to that family so much. And I feel so bad for this young man that this is what we're dealing with today, when who knows if someone was just checking in and saying, hey, are you good? Are you all right? And it just gives you a reminder to do that to your people, and to do that as often as you can. As much as they might look like they're on top of the mountain, scoring a touchdown on Monday Night Football, things might not be all good.
Yeah, it's well said. Dan, you brought up a point that I think is really important, this idea that people feel like it's a bad thing or admitting some sort of weakness to ask for help. And I wonder how we can work on that even as a society. I mean, it's not just a football problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, like, not a doctor by any means, but, like, when, you know, Peter says, like, check in, are you okay? I don't know how you feel about it, but, like, as an athlete, I would have never told you I was struggling. I would have never done it. If you called me and said, yo, you been good, I'd be like, I'm fine. Because, like, I feel like I'm conditioned in a way and like that. I feel like, honestly, as a man, I'm conditioned.
Do conversations like this help maybe think that you would do it differently? That it's open, I mean, on this set?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, like, you know, again, this feels like it's happening more. It's, you know, 3 or 4 names this year. And so I do think that hopefully, you know, I know, like, a person like Elaine Johnson has spoken out in support of it. And I do think that there's that, like, barrier that has to get broken down. And I'm speaking just from an athlete's perspective, but I also think that this is for everyday people, you know, that aren't the NFL players, that don't score the touchdown on Monday night, to be willing to be like, yo, I'm in a bad place right now. And it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or I'm headed down the wrong direction. Because, like, Peter, your point of the touchdown, like, I think that what gets lost sight of it is, like, that's 10 seconds. So that young man got to the 10 seconds, this is the best. But then 4 minutes later, you're like, okay, that's over. It reminds me of the Scotty Scheffler stuff this
where
past
he
summer.
talked about it.
You know, when he was
reached
like,
the mountaintop and it may not be everything.
On Monday, you're like, okay, what's next? And, you know, for football, it's like there's extremes. You know, it's like 3 weeks ago, you were on the defense that got 40 hung on you. Now you're scoring, a touchdown on Monday Night Football. How do you handle all those extremes? And, like, your point of the social media stuff, too, as well, where I guarantee there's athletes and guys in the league that are looking at, like, people in social media that maybe aren't in the NFL and craving a little bit of that life because there's a normalcy to it, you know, rather than the celebrity element.
Yeah, and I think to both of you guys' point, when you talk about checking in and you talk about asking somebody, are you okay? I think it goes so much further beyond that, because I do agree with Dan where somebody just asks me if I'm okay. It's my natural inclination to just say yes.
I'm fine.
You know,
right.
But I think time spent together goes so much further, where if I'm friends with you, Peter, and I just choose a day to come be in your presence, I'll know right away if you're okay or not. I can see it. And I think that's the part of it where when you look at this outside of just a locker room and just look at it from a society perspective, that's where we can check in on people. Because I think for guys playing in the league, I know as I was exiting the league, the hardest thing was there were so many resources to you if you were going through anything. There was team clinicians, there was through the league, there were so many things. But what were guys' comfort level with doing that? When you show up to a team and you're brand new in a new city and there might not be a lot of people that may look like you or different things of that nature. I know for me, I left New York where I grew up and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. It was a completely different atmosphere. And to think that I'm going to walk into a team and maybe struggling and go talk to a stranger, it's very hard. But the one thing you realize when you're in the locker room, Dan, you spend so much time with players, with coaches, with trainers.
I think, like, we continue, I think, as a culture or people to say, like, check in on people. Like, to your point with the locker room, when we used to check in on people, because of our technology nowadays, like, we used to actually engage.
Yes.
There's not a lot of person-to-person interaction.
Nowadays, I feel like, well, let's check in. It's like, it's almost transactional. Like, okay,
You send a text.
Yeah, you know, and is that enough nowadays?
No, and that's why I said, I think to Peter's point, it is time. Like, it's the time physically being in somebody else's presence that you can see, especially somebody you know.
It's got to be like something we're conscious of.
Yes.
Like,
again, just to be perfectly clear, this is a really valuable conversation. We don't know who all was checking in on Marshawn Kneeland. He had great people around him, and those are the people, too, that today we're really thinking about. I can't even imagine how tough all of it is. Matt Rule, by the way, who coached the Panthers and is currently coaching at Nebraska, he had this reaction to Kneeland's death.
I have to, I send my condolences, obviously. It's just awful, awful, awful news. But you also know at the same time, I've given the eulogy for players of mine who've had the same thing happen. And so it's just, you never know what people are going through. And I will forever, the rest of my life, think about the time that I saw Adrian Robinson right before he took his own life. And I saw him on campus, and I was walking this way, and he was way over there, and I was like, I need to catch up with Adrian because he had got done playing. And a week later, he left this world, and a month later, I was given the eulogy. And I just wish in my life I could go back and just stop and say, hey, how you doing? And so it's not really what you asked, but it's on my heart, and I just share it with the team. Like, I just think it's a time in this world for us to be kind to people and at the same time care about people and ask about people. Our generation of kids, my kids, they all just say, yeah, I'm fine, I'm straight, and it's just like, you really got to unearth it.
If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. As you can see here, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. You are not alone, and no amount of empathy or sympathy can bring back Marshawn Kneeland, but maybe if we all try to put a little more empathy out in the world, we can help others who could be going through really hard times. All right, we are going to